Welcome to the Fashion is Cool podcast, where we explore fashion's business side and the entrepreneurs behind it. Hosted by Dwight Carter, your guide to diverse careers and inspiring stories in fashion.
Welcome to the Fashion is Cool podcast. I am your host, Dwight Carter, the ultimate destination for fashion enthusiasts, where we explore the multi-careers in fashion. Each episode will bring you powerful conversations with some of the most influential minds in fashion. Our incredible guests have included Carmela Spinelli, renowned fashion historian and former chair of SCAD's top-ranked fashion program, Audra Harold, vice president at STAR's Design Group, who shared insights on education, innovation, and community building. Jill Manoff, editor-in-chief of Glossy Magazine, also a former Alive Magazine editor-in-chief, who dove into the evolving world of fashion media. But now, let me introduce you to Timothy J. Moore, or as you may know him as T.Moore. He is a creative powerhouse with over a decade of experience in storytelling, photography, branding, and event production. T.Moore is a visionary behind St. Louis Black Fashion Week, an incredible platform that celebrates Black culture and gives a voice to those who have been unrepresented in creative space. He is also the founder of DOERHOUSE Company, a lifestyle brand that goes beyond traditional agency work. Through this groundbreaking company, he creates culturally inspired content, experiences, and strategies that combine imagination, innovation, and real impact. Welcome to the show, T.Moore.
Yo, what's going on? What's up, White? What's up, world? How you guys doing?
Like I said, I'm really excited to have you here because there's not a lot of fashion show producers that I've interviewed. There's not a lot of fashion show producers that I know that do this, full time on a regular basis in St. Louis itself. And I'm one of them. And it's exciting to hear more about how the industry works and how you work, because I'm always inspired by other people, like we always are. So let's jump right into the fashion show production side of things.
Yeah, let's do it.
We are creatives as well. We put creatives on the runway, we put creatives out on social media and brand them. But, as a fashion show producer, we're also considered a creative. So how do you balance creativity and logistics? And how do you ensure that both elements come together seamlessly during St. Louis Black Fashion?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, first and foremost, it is definitely an honor to sit on this podcast with you, Dwight. I think I've seen you kind of working, front of house, back of house in several different experiences. So to sit down and have a conversation with you, man, I don't take it lightly. So thank you so much for reaching out and even allowing me to be on the platform. I mean, just diving right in, when you think about like logistics and the word balance is one of those words that just seems like it doesn't exist in the midst of all of these things that you're doing. But in producing St. Louis Black Fashion Week, it's about collaboration and like it's detailed planning. So I really focus on like assembling a skilled team that's really necessary. I think that in the earlier years, the genesis of the whole experience, it was me trying to do everything. I wanted to do front of house and back of house. And you quickly learn the hard way that you can't do it all, right?
Yeah.
And so when you don't have the money to spend to pay a team and all these different things, it's really, really hard to develop a squad, right? That's going to be able to execute that idea. But, I think for me, building out a team that has the skill sets to execute, even if they're new to it, it can alleviate a lot of opportunity for failure, right? Mm-hmm. And so we created a unified vision through mood boards, production timelines, team meetings, and just to create a vision overall to kind of find a balance so that nobody's really getting burnt out. Even though as a creator, sometimes it's like the producer and the founder, like the spearhead, you're going to have those moments of burnout. But, for me, I will say that in my most recent years, I have found a sense of peace that I didn't have in the first couple of years because I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to figure out how to make this thing come together. But, delegating it out and actually just having a clear vision. In the past, I didn't always have a clear vision. I knew what the end goal was, but I didn't really have a clear vision on the steps to get there. And so now that, through maturity, through age, through time, and through wisdom, gained from, people like yourself, man, and just kind of watching certain journeys, I've been able to kind of find a balance now.
So how did you find your team, and what show did you have that you said, okay, I've finally put together the right team?
Yeah. You know what, man? I think that, finding the right team is an ongoing journey, right? People who are on my team now are literally people who are close to me. So, my best friend, Curtis Bradley, has been like right by my side, man, since like 2017, 2018. My fraternity brother, both of these guys are my fraternity brothers. Darrell Stewart has come on board as a project manager. So he's currently at Boeing, and he does a lot of amazing things there. So he's taking those skill sets and bringing them over here and, kind of keeping me on track and kind of giving me a little bit more of a corporate structure, because I don't come from a corporate structure style background, right? I've been a creative all my life. So all I know is throwing what they say, throwing it against the wall until you find something that sticks. Yeah. And so they're bringing strategy, they're bringing, structure to the team. And so even with these two amazing guys, and of course there are more people on the team. So, I'm remiss to not mention everyone, but the beautiful thing is that this team is always ever evolving. And so one of the members on my team said, hey, I've been doing this with you, but I think that where you're going, I might not be ready for that next level. Right. And so I think it's just about finding people who are committed to the idea and putting people in the right position. Like, you can only work with your friends or family so long if they're just kind of on board because they support you. Right. And so I think I'm in a season now, after celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year, I am in a season where I want to get people who are doing what they love to do and that are really designed for the positions in which I need. So again, I think it's an ongoing experience when it comes to building out a team.
That's cool of him to say he wants you to succeed, and he doesn't think he can take it to the next level. That's honorable.
Yeah, and it very much so is, man. And it shook me, right? Because I'm like, well, man, you've been with me for so long, right? But he said, like, hey, man, I want you to have people on your team who can really help this vision grow. I support you. I love you. I love your vision. I love your enthusiasm. But like, this is not my passion. I'm doing it because I enjoy being with you and showing love and supporting you. But I think it's time for you to get the right people in the right place.
Right. So what's the process like for the rest of the show, like curating designers, models, performers? How do you bring all that together in one cohesive event?
Yeah, I mean, so the process, honestly, it begins with the casting call, right? And even before the casting call, it kind of really boils down to like, what's the goal? Like, what's the goal of the show? And so every year, we try our best to figure out, is this show about streetwear? Is this show about avant-garde cut and sew? Like, what are the different things? And Dwight, let me say this, man. We've had backlash every single year. You can put your heart into something, and man, this is a reminder for every creative out there. You can put your heart and soul and blood, sweat, and tears into something, and there's going to be a critique. Like, there's going to be a critique, So if you're looking for perfection, then this is the wrong business for you, right? But for us, we think about how do we bring all of these ideas together. And so then we kind of move into the casting call realm. And the casting call to me is one of the most difficult pieces of the entire production, because these are people who genuinely are wanting to be a part of what you're doing. And so sometimes when you have to say no, it's heartbreaking. Like, I've seen people who have come and they just knew they had it, right? They've been practicing in their mirror downstairs whole year for this big opportunity, and then they don't make it. And so you see the letdown on their faces. And so, I think that this has been one of the most interesting experiences, because we're building something. And sometimes I think as creatives, man, we're building this stuff and we don't realize how big it is to the world, right? Because we started in our own basements, right? Or in the garage like Steve Jobs, right? Yeah. And it seems so small. But man, this year was a really, really cool opportunity because we had people travel, right? We had someone travel in, catch a flight, pay for a ticket, pay for a hotel to come to a casting call here. Wow. And so something like that, man, it really blew my mind, because this is the first time that something like that has happened.
Right.
And so after 10 years, I'm seeing that something that was built literally in college has now gotten to a point that nationwide people know about it and they're wanting to be a part. So when it comes to curating all of these people, man, we think about whose stories are we truly telling? And so models who embody confidence, diversity, we want to ensure that we're intentional in picking people who can display that thing on the runway, because when you get in front of a couple of hundred people, what you do in your basement, it might not translate well over to the runway in front of people and these big sponsors. So we try to make sure that we foster collaboration and we have rehearsal and that we weave these elements into really one seamless narrative, man. And I think that my life being centered around storytelling, that's really the biggest thing for me. How does everybody who touches that runway tell a portion of this story?
Yeah. I tend to see some models that walk away faster than they do in rehearsal
100%.
or than they do before, because it's either nervousness or excitement.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, and it just speeds up it, you know, you have to kind of slow them down a little bit. But
yeah, it's like muscles in lane 4, 5, and 6. I'm ready for the run, you know?
So this is your 10th year. So what was that feeling like when when did you realize it was 10 years? Because I know I do shows and I don't always keep track of how many, what year I'm on until like it's about to come. And it's I'm like, oh man, I just did this for 10 years. It's crazy. So what moment, when did you realize that? And what was that feeling like?
I can't say that I know exactly when I realized it, right? I do know that like after 7, I was kind of like, man, like this is something, like this, we have a thing here.
Yeah.
And so, because, after you do something, 1, 2, maybe even 3 times, it's kind of like, oh, this is a cool idea. But I was just telling a buddy yesterday, I'm like, it seemed, I'm 32 now. And so, I was in college when I had started the initial idea for this whole thing. And so I look at it at 22 years old, I did my first show. And so to look at it, like I look at the stuff that I didn't know, I look at, my lack of maturity in the season of being 22. I just look at my whole life, right? At 22, I had no kids at the time. Like I was just free in my mind, right? Yeah. And so I think after year 7 has always been my favorite number, but just because, just from a biblical standpoint, they say it's the number of completion and things of that nature. On the 7th day, the creator rested. And, of course, numerology has blown my mind. Now they tell me 8 is the number of completion, but whatever. I've been believing 7 for my whole life, so we're going to stick with that. And so after 7, it kind of stuck out to me. And I'm like, man, this thing has really kind of been building.
Yeah.
And so you look at it, you're like, yo, in 3 years, it's going to be 10 years, right? Like, and so it feels like 8, 9 just kind of were, honestly, and it's like we're year 10. And so, yeah, man, I think it's just a matter of just like when you're in the thick of it all, like time moves so quick.
Yeah. That is so true. I started with St. Louis. I'm 52.
Okay.
And so
cool.
I started my fashion career journey when I was 30.
Wow.
When I was with St. Louis Fashion Week. I was in the music business and then switched to fashion, and then I'm still in it. And it's amazing just to see how many years I've been a part of this industry. It's crazy. It's crazy,
man. 22 years in the game, man.
Yeah. No, it's insane. So what do you consider the most important element? What's a successful fashion show to you?
A successful fashion show to me is getting to the final walk.
Yeah.
Getting to the final walk, because, in transparency, man, as I said earlier in the podcast, man, there's no perfect show, right? There's always something. And a lot of times that something is something that only right? Like only you know that it happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, I think I consider a perfect show, for one, everybody being happy, right? Like everybody being pleased with their contribution. Like that to me feels like a successful show. My first show that I ever did, I think it had about 40, 50 people at it max. And so I looked at that as a complete failure, because I'm like, I know way more than, 50 people. I expected it to be 200, 300 people, because that's how many people I know at the time. And I'm in college, and I'm like, all of the schools should have came and everybody should have been here.
Yeah.
And so I looked at it as a failure. I'm like, man, only 50 people came. And I don't even know all 50 of these people. So that means the people who are on my team invited folks, the models invited folks. And so, again, at the time, I valued success a lot differently. And so now it's not about the number of people that are in the crowd. Now, from a business standpoint, of course it matters, right? Like you this money, you're trying to recuperate, those funds. You want to make a profit, and of course, so you're thinking about it. But when I look in the audience, man, I look at each person in every single seat as somebody who just believes in this idea, right? Not as like, okay, perfect. We checked off a box. We got 300 people in the building. It's just like, hey, man, you got 300 people who are saying like, I believe in you. I'm going to invest. And so that investment is not about just finding an angel investor or some big sponsor. It's about saying the people who really don't get anything in return are investing into what you're doing. So, I may say I may not get a lot of sponsors, Dwight, but I think I have some of the best investors that I've ever had the opportunity to meet, because they buy tickets every single year to see this experience. And some of the testimonials that we hear, in my team, when I have certain team that I, outsourced doing video work, and you hear some of the stories, man, people say, oh, I've been coming since year 2, or I've been coming since this. And it's like, I've never met them personally, but they believe in it so much. And they're saying like, hey, we love T.Moore. We want to do this. We would love to come. It's like, yo, wow. Like, after so long, these people are invested. And so, man, I just continue to like keep pleasing the audience in the sense.
Right. And how many designers do you think is a good number for the fashion film?
You know what? I've gotten to a point where I've tried the masses. So we used to do 7. This entire experience started as the Sweet 7 fashion show in 2014. It was a 1-day experience, 7 black designers. 7 black designers and 7 looks. That was the thing, right? So that was how we kind of came to the whole concept of this whole vibe. It wasn't until about like maybe a couple of years later when I got an opportunity to go to New York Fashion Week. And so one of my good friends, Quentin Jackson, the founder of BPLR, he passed a couple of years ago. And so him and I had actually gone to New York Fashion Week. He had his collection in one of the shows in New York Fashion Week. And you know how they have like several shows that aren't a part of the official lineup, right? Have kind of exterior shows. And we went to this show and he had spent a nice amount of money for this investment. And it was heartbreaking when we got to the show because there were only about maybe 30 or 40 people at this show. And so it had been promoted as, the New York Fashion Week, outlet show and all these different things. And not being from there, we just 2 kids from the Midwest, you know what I'm saying? And so we were chasing this dream. And so I think it was about a $5,000 investment, Dwight, for him to be a part of the show. And we get there, and again, it's 40, 50 people in the show. And it was such a disappointment because we were sold a dream. And so when we went, I remember after the show, we got in the car and we were heading back to the hotel. And so I said, man, I'm going to do a show and I'm going to do a Black Fashion Week in St. Louis because there's no reason that our designers here should have to leave and kind of be bamboozled in another city after we've invested this money thinking that it's a great opportunity. And so, man, my heart is behind Black Fashion Week because it really is an opportunity for Black designers to be put into a highlight production, man, that's not shortchanged. And that we put all of our energy into and our heart into so that people can come and they can see it and that they can be in the news and in the papers and on social. So we try our best to do as much as we can, man, to really put our heart and our energy into these designers.
That's great. Man, $5,000. It's a lot to get nothing.
Yeah, get nothing, man. And so, and man, in business, man, again, we talk about you can't please everybody. With Black Fashion Week, we charge our designers to be a part of the production. And so, it's a nominal fee of about $500. And so, that covers like the photography for them and, just the other essentials that are needed to kind of produce the show. Because, as man, producing a show is not a cheap venture.
No.
If a solo designer wants to produce a show, they're going to be in at least $5,000 at minimum to do a quality show. Right. A venue alone is nearly $5,000 half the time. So we for one, we have seen that those who we charge take the opportunity more seriously.
Yeah.
What I'm saying? And so we want to get to a place where we can pay the designers, but until we get there, man, this is a grassroots type of brand and, it's going to take some time, but we'll get there eventually. It is my goal that one day St. Louis Black Fashion Week will be able to pay each and every designer that's a part of the experience.
Yeah. And, they're not just paying for photography, they're paying for the showdown.
Yes, sir.
Because like you said, that's, minimum, renting and sound and lighting, all that stuff is it can go up to $20,000 at
easy.
Easy. Right. And so,
I have missed a couple of rent payments. I have missed a couple of bills. I have had my phone turned off immediately before the show just because I'm investing really my hard earned that I make through the year into this show, man. And so, yeah, you're right. You can spend a little bit of extra. You can definitely go over budget.
Yeah. Because you're doing a lot. I mean, I think there's some designers that will argue with that, because they are putting their money into their collection.
Yeah, for
But,
sure.
It's got to be seen. And, this is also a job,
Yeah.
this is also a job.
Man.
You do have to pay your bills. You are putting 6-7 months into this project, like daily. How do you incorporate storytelling in your production of Black fashion shows?
Yeah. Man, storytelling is like the backbone of every single show. And so I think that from now moving forward, it's from the choice of the designers to the music and the lighting. Every detail kind of reflects like a broader narrative of like Black culture. And so from the resilience to the creativity, it was, I think the first time that I really got deep into it was year 9 when I celebrated, 50 years of hip hop.
Yes.
And so
I
in
remember
that show, we did it at this venue called Gateway Classic Cars, and it's on the Illinois side. And so, Black culture has always been about like, the cars, the jewelry, like things like that. Hip hop kind of brought those things to life. So we chose that venue. It was the venue that kind of helped us lead the narrative. So, in all of the actual lighting, the lighting kind of resembled like headlights, and it kind of resembled like the old school party nights. So with me, I didn't grow up with this like passion for fashion. I probably wasn't, I was thinking in high school, like the superlative I got was like most uniquely dressed, right? Because I was always trying stuff, right? Like I wore a kufa in high school. Like I did all of the stuff that was like, okay, well, let's try this out, right? And I could care less what everybody thought. So little did I know that was me embarking into fashion. And so I think that in the show, I come from a production background. So photography, video, design, graphics. So when I look at like lighting, that's the stuff that really makes me excited about shows, like how the opening of the show is, and how the lights move, and all of these different things. And so I quickly learned how much that stuff cost. Because I thought uplights was like the maximum. I thought that was like, that's really how you do it.
Yeah.
Well, when we get into all of these different elements and the movers and all of these trusts that are having to be brought in, man, sometimes I'm spending $5,000-$6,000 on light.
Yeah.
By itself. Right. And so we haven't even scratched the surface of the venue yet. Right. And so, I think with me, the storytelling component really happens, like I said, with bringing in a theme. I challenge all of the designers. I want you to base your collection around hip hop, like around the 50 years of hip hop era. And so, each one of them they kind of put their own twist on that. And so I think now moving forward every year, I kind of want to do more themed collection stuff because I think that kind of gives more, it gives more interest. Because I mean, once you've seen one fashion show, you've kind of seen them all, right? It's the same structure for the most part. So you have to think about, for one, those investors that I talked about, those 300, 400 people who are buying tickets, they don't want to see the same show every single year. Right. Like you can bring in new designers and still have the same exact show. So for me, I'm all about, I try to pick a brand new venue every single year, right? For one, it just gives a different experience. And so I'm intentional because all of the venues that we've used thus far typically have not been utilized by African Americans outside of weddings. And so I try to kind of break boundaries in some of these spaces because, not only are we telling a story through the fashion, we're telling a story just through the spaces that we're able to use. Because it's a strange fact, right? And it is the history that we have not always been allowed into places. And so for the fact that 2024, we're still dealing with some of those same challenges, it's pertinent to me to be able to occupy those spaces.
Yeah. Well, that goes right into my next question is what impact do you hope this event has on the fashion industry and the community? And how do you measure the success of the cultural impact of Black Fashion Week, both locally and beyond? Because you're from Atlanta? No, am I about to get that right?
No, born and raised, man. Born and raised in
St. Louis.
Sir,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got to ask each other the question, man.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Yeah.
I went to Hazelwood Central, so yeah, born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay. All right.
Yep. But as far as, the impact for Black Fashion Week, I think for me, it's about creating representation and access, right? I want an event that inspires young Black creatives to see a space for themselves in fashion while educating them in the broader scope, similar to how you're doing, right? Fashion producers, you've had designers, you've had all of these different people on your platform. And sometimes we don't even know the access points into an industry. And so you don't have to just be a designer in order to be in the fashion industry. And so in addition to, I think, like measuring the success and like the cultural impact, man, for me, it's not about the ticket sales or the attendance. I think it's something good for sponsors to see, right? Of course, when you're trying to sell your vision, but it's about the conversations that are sparked, the opportunities that are created for other designers, and like the empowerment space. For me, when designers get new opportunities from doing the show and they leave feeling like they had a night of success, like the cameras are flashing, they feel good. And man, you see these designers' hearts glow when everybody is like, oh, how can I get that? Or that was beautiful. Man, that they need that. You know what I'm saying? That's something that kind of keeps the energy going. And so over the past 10 years, it's been really, really rewarding because now we have alumni designers thriving. And we're hearing stories of how that event impacted them professionally, personally. And so I think it just reminds me why I do this whole entire thing, because you put in all of this work for a 4-hour production, for a 4-hour event, and then it's gone. And it's kind of like you're sitting. I did a video with this year because we had the opportunity to be at the City Hall. And I just did a video where I walked into the City Hall and it was dark and just had like one little light on up in like, I think the second floor. Yeah. And man, I sat there and I just thought to myself, like, man, after 10 years, for one, we're one of the coolest venues in the city. We had a chance to partner with the city. We've gotten a proclamation for our show. We've gotten these amazing opportunities, and it all started with an idea. And so we didn't have the big resources. We didn't have a major funding. It wasn't any of that. It was just, faith. It was faith, and it was hard work, and it was commitment. And so I think that for me, man, if people can join this opportunity and leave with a smile on their face and their heart touched, I think that we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing in the city.
How was that doing a show there?
It was a headache. It was a headache, man. But no, I mean, it was cool because the city appreciated it, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, I mean, if I can be candid, it was like, yo, Black people doing a show at the City Hall, like that's super cool, right? And so, I took a little bit of pride in that one, right?
Yeah.
And so people like Mayor Tashara Jones and, who believe in what we're doing. And, there's another young lady, Angela, she works with the City Hall. And so she works directly with Mayor Jones. And so Angela is really the one, man, who got us this opportunity. And so she said, T, I really believe in what you all are doing. And like, to be young, Black, and gifted, I'm going to do as much as I can to support and to share your vision inside the office, right? Because we don't always get those opportunities. And so, man, I think that was the coolest space to be in, definitely to celebrate 10 years. Like, that's a major milestone. So everybody's, of course, asking now, like, man, what are you going to do it next year? I'm like, yo, I have no idea. It's like back to the drawing board. But
yeah,
it's
you got to top every year.
Yeah, you got to top every year, man. So we got to figure it out. But no, doing it at the City Hall was one of the most amazing opportunities, man, because it felt like you have those moments in your life, man, where you kind of felt like you made it, right? You kind of felt like, yeah, this is it. And man, that was one of those nights, man, where I finally just kind of sat in it a little bit and was like, you know what? Yeah, you got a lot of dreams, T, and you got a lot of things that you want to do, but man, take this night and just realize that you did it. Like you're here, you're present, and look at all of these people who are here being able to participate in it.
So when you pick a venue, what is the first thing that you were looking for when you do that first walkthrough and trying to lay everything out? What are you looking for? What's important to make the show run smoothly?
Yeah, I mean, well, number one, it's two things for me. One of them is kind of like a heart thing, right? It's like when I walk in a space, I know if it feels good, right, to me. If it feels right, like the layout feels good. And then I think it's just what the culture is going to appreciate. Like, does the culture walk in and say, and I say the culture, I mean, other people who look like me, are we excited to come in that space? I mean, then of course, you get to your technicals, right? It's like, does it have enough space for a back of house? Because the thing is, you can have a perfect venue that allows for the showcase to happen. But if it doesn't have space for 100 models and 7 to 10 designers and makeup artists and staff anywhere in the venue, then it's no good to you.
Yeah.
And so, you look for that. And then I think I also, from now that I do so much in the production side, we look for electricity.
Mm.
A lot of these venues you'll look at and they don't have enough outlets, or they don't have enough, like circuits with enough amps and wattage. So you're looking at all of these different things. Yes, you can bring that stuff in, but then that increases your budget, right? Because you got to do power drops and you have to bring in additional generators and all of these different things. So I think that for me, again, it's a hard piece. Does the venue fit? Is it aesthetically pleasing? Will it light well? Will it be good for content? And then I look at the, again, the more sound stuff. Hey, what are we looking at from an electric standpoint, from a media standpoint, from a load-in standpoint, and then from a backup house standpoint?
Yeah, backup house is so important. I've had in my early days so many cramped bathrooms of trying to get everybody together.
I can definitely agree. Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. But now, that's the first thing I look for is, how many people I can fit in the room to buy tickets, but how many people can I fit?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely, man. I have done the cram closets and everything else, man. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. And then you think about too, man, like as simple as like, what's the points? Like, what are the access points from back of house to front of house? Like, what does that look like? Because is it that they have to go through the crowd that's actually sitting in the lobby and kind of grabbing drinks and not paying attention to the show? Like, like, what are the access points? So yeah, it's so many things to think about, man. I think people think that like it's just a fashion show. It's not that big of a deal. Yo, it's so much that goes into it that people underestimate for sure.
Oh yeah, you're just putting pretty people on a runway, and that's it. That's what I get.
That's hard enough.
Yeah, that's it.
That's hard enough, man.
Oh man. All right, let's talk about DOERHOUSE.
Yeah, absolutely.
So explain what DOERHOUSE is, what you guys do.
So DOERHOUSE, man, it's an ever evolving creative company.
Mm-hmm.
For so long, being a person who's big on branding and storytelling, I tried to get the perfect narrative of what the DOERHOUSE is. There is none. There is not a perfect narrative. So I have now coined it as an idea, goods, and experience company. Okay. And so, really, man, what we do, we create experiences and we create products, and we like pretty much like test ideas that are going to like help serve the culture. Mm-hmm. And so one of my biggest things that I say all the time is that I'm pro-Black, anti-nothing, okay? And so I'm very, very intentional about that statement because I have friends or acquaintances or associates across the color wheel. And so I love all of them, right? I learn so much, I get new experiences, but I recognize the deficit that we've had as a culture, and that being specifically African Americans. And so all of the things that we do are all geared toward advancing and initiating and creating a spark in the culture, whether it's through events, whether it's through products, or whether it's through entertainment. Mm-hmm. And so, really with what we're doing with DOERHOUSE, I say it's a groundbreaking opportunity because we're putting all of these things into one. Mm-hmm. And I say it's groundbreaking because we're being transparent. And I think a lot of companies have ulterior motives, right? But they coin it or they package it as one thing. So DOERHOUSE, man, we do all things from the event production all the way to execution, right? So from ideation to execution is where we live. And so we're doing photography, video, production arms where it comes to like lighting and sound. But then you can also come to DOERHOUSE, to create a campaign. How do we take a showcase, right? Let's just take fashion since we're in that space. A fashion show could come to DOERHOUSE and we could help them curate the entire experience from their graphics to what they see on social, all the way to what a customer or a ticket buyer feels the moment they walk in to the moment that they leave. So DOERHOUSE is like a full experience agency, if you will. Like if you had to put it into like okay, so all of that stuff sounds cool, T, but what is it? We're agency. Yeah, ultimately. And so, I think we get an opportunity to serve. Our goal is to serve Black brands, though, because Black brands, unfortunately, have suffered at the hands of just not having those resources. And some of these brands are extremely talented, offer great products, but don't tell the story correctly, or they go to agencies that don't understand the culture, and then they tell it from their point of view, and it kind of misses the mark for the authenticity that the brand actually hosts. So, man, I think that DOERHOUSE has an opportunity now to not only tell better stories, but we're looking to do some short films, some mini documentaries, and introduce our culture and be another voice introducing the culture to the world, man.
So did you create DOERHOUSE? Did it evolve through Black Fashion Week? Like you saw something that was needed?
Actually, man, so I started, so a lot of people are familiar with T.Moore Media. Like that's that's been my Instagram handle since I ever was on Instagram. I think I changed it for like 2 hours and I changed it back because my anxiety. And so I think I called myself the real T.Moore, and I was like, yeah, I don't like this at all. So I went back. And so I've been T.Moore Media for years. And so I got into that line of work because my dad's a photographer. And so he had been doing photography for his entire life until he kind of retired, of course. And so I've been around the camera my whole entire life. Like I have pictures of me as a baby, like, with stuff on a tripod, shooting a family picture. And so I'm like 4 or 5 at the time. And so little did I know, now having kids, the way I relate this story is this, Dwight. In 2016, I got the opportunity to move to Dallas, Texas, to be a part of a program called the Marcus Graham Project, which is, the people can look it up. And it's basically an organization that's designed to get Black creatives and women into the advertising industry. And so I served in Dallas, Texas as an art director and producer through this internship program. And so then we met all of these different agencies, White and Kennedy, which is the ad agency for Nike. And so we met these like leaders on these boards. And what I learned in 2016, is that, there's an amazing advertising industry in this, but only about 7%, African Americans make up about 7% of those who are in that industry. And only half of that is actually on the leadership or executive teams of these agencies. So we got looking at about 3.5% of African Americans are actually in the actual decision-making rooms for telling stories that are going to sell products, events, ideas to the world. Yeah. And it was at that time when I was like, you know what? It would be great to tell stories from our lens that promote our stuff because we have the highest purchasing power in this country. Right. And so why not be able to tell those stories? And so I think that now looking at it, having kids and everything, I look back at my childhood photos and I realized that my dad taking pictures of every single event that happened in our lives, it documented history for a moment. And so a lot of people have the cliche, like, making memories last a lifetime. But man, I think that what we're doing is we're telling stories that will stretch and span a lifetime so that when you and I, Dwight, are gone, people can look back and these type of conversations are recorded. And so, I want to always, it's interesting to me. I think I see a lot of people glorified. And so unfortunately, when things happen to people like ourselves, we don't always have the best stories to be told. It's only what grandma used to know or grandpa used to know. And it's like what happens because all of my grandparents are gone. And so I have a lack of stories that I get a chance to hear about. And so for me, I wanted to make sure that when I'm, transitioned, there's an opportunity of a story that I told that can live on forever in somebody's space, and it will glorify them visually. You'll be able to see them in their most heroic and iconic moments versus having to hear about it.
Yeah.
Because those stories get kind of twisted as time goes on. But you can press play or however the media will be in 100 years. You can see, wow, this was Dwight. This was Dwight Carter, man. This is him doing these shows, coming down the runway as the final person because he produced these things versus hearing about it. You get a chance to see this iconic man who did it when he was here. Yeah. And we all get the same 24 hours. So I want to just kind of glorify what you did with yours.
Wow. It's beautiful. Yeah. Wonder how we will be doing it in 100 years.
Who knows, man? Somebody asked me for a DVD the other day. They wanted me to project on a DVD, and I said, well, man, I'm going to be honest. I don't actually do that. You know what I'm saying? You're right. I don't know how we'll be doing it in 100 years. But the way that reality looks now, man, you can put the glasses on and touch stuff and move. And so, hopefully it'll be a little chip in your brain. You can just go back to it. So
yeah, think about it, right? So what advice would you give to someone looking to produce their very first fashion show, particularly one with focus on cultural empowerment?
Yeah. Find your why and stay grounded in that because your work should serve a mission, if you will, right? And that mission doesn't have to be robust and huge, right? It doesn't have to be to stop world hunger or anything like that. It could just be, hey, I want to make a show that that shows the honest side of designers, right? Just never compromise your authenticity, even when challenges arise or when opportunities arise. So I think that that's really, really important. And then I think additionally, specifically for fashion shows, start with the clear vision and build a team that shares your true passion. I think that that's really, really huge. And so research, plan meticulously, understand the audience that you're serving, and then center the voices and culture that you want to celebrate, because that will resonate. Doing exactly what you see on YouTube for the Gucci fashion show or the Louis Vuitton fashion show, like that doesn't always resonate, because is your consumer purchasing those goods, right? Are they interested in that same style of music? Like, stick with your audience, find your why, and don't let anything shake you off of your purpose.
That's good. That's good advice. That's really good advice. All right. Now I got I'm gonna ask you a couple questions that aren't fashion related at all.
Okay, good stuff.
And we're going to get to know you a little bit more. Let's see. What is your favorite childhood memory?
Man, you making me dig in the crates. My favorite childhood memory. You know what, Dwight? I really don't. I can't say I have a favorite childhood memory. That's a great question. I think as a child, I was always, let my mom tell it and my dad, I was always trying to figure out a way to make some money. So even as a kid, man, I remember having a Moore's lawn care card. I used to cut grass and do trimming. I cleaned gutters. I washed cars. I shoveled snow when it snowed, when it wintertime. Dude, I think that my favorite childhood memory just made me looking back and just being like, yo, you always been a hustler. Like, that's it, like, I didn't grow up in like poverty by any means, right? I think some people try to paint that picture like they just grew up in the toughest, thing. I grew up, man, middle class family, man. My father was a blue collar worker. My mom was a church secretary. And so I didn't have like, the silver spoon stuff, right? And so I think that, man, just seeing how they made things come to life, even though I know for a fact that the times were a little rough, was cool to me. So I just kind of found myself hustling pretty early, man. I think I kind of missed out a little bit on some of the childhood stuff that most people rave about.
Right. All right. What about your favorite place to eat in St. Louis?
Oh, okay. My favorite place to eat in St. Louis. It's a range, man. I love going to Miley's.
Oh, man.
Miley's is great. Emos every now and then is always good. You know what I'm saying? You got to get some emos. I lay off the White Castle. I'm cool on that. Dude, you put me on the spot with this food. I mean, you got to keep it country a little bit. I love going to like St. Louis Fish and Chicken. You know what I'm saying? For sure, I don't mind getting that. Like, we need a little bit of low vibrational food every now and then. But yeah, man, I'm kind of looking for a lot of new spots, though. I'm looking for a lot of new spots because, I mean, I'm on this health journey now. So, I mean, things are honestly shifting for me a little bit. Yeah. So, yeah, man. Yeah. And I got to get some Wingstop. See, I'm on the low vibration right now. But then, what are the Crazy Bowls? Now, Crazy Bowls is fire, too.
Okay. That's where the health stuff
happens. That's where the health stuff. That's where the health stuff. You know what I'm saying?
And what are you listening to right now? What artists are you big on?
Yeah, man. AJ McQueen is an artist I'm really I'm tuned in with, man. I'm locked in with him. Like, I start every morning with this song called "Sit Yourself Down" off of his "Sit Yourself Down" tour he just did. So AJ McQueen for sure. I had this playlist that I have just like ambient classical music that I've been listening to, and so that's kind of been like I just been exploring tons of artists. But AJ McQueen probably has to be like my hands down top artist I've been listening to, man. He's been flooding my airways for like the last couple of months.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, can you tell us how to find you on your socials and email or website and all that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be at T.Moore Media. So it's TMOORE Media. No weird spelling, no underscores, none of that. And you'll find everything right there. So instead of me trying to branch out and tell you every little social handle, go right there and it has everything linked. I'm building my personal brand always, so you get a chance to kind of see all of the things that that my world encompasses. It's like kind of like a T.Moore planet, that I'm building.
The T.Moore planet.
See all of these amazing things that I'm working on. I think that's the best way to do it. Connect with me. I try my best not to be, Hollywood. I'm just St. Louis hood. I'm from the neighborhood, man. So, come and hang out with me, man. Grab lunch. We can do whatever, yo.
Cool. Well, thank you, T.Moore, for joining us today. And I want to thank everyone for watching and listening. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you next time.